but we will need to pay interest on our settlement amount at 4% for the 2.78 years since February 11th. That's a $98,000, $134 payment for interest. Therefore, the total due to Azure Properties Council is $980,634. We have paid to them in June of 08 $70,000. So with this settlement offer that, should you approve it this evening, an amount of $910,634 will be paid to Azure Properties. We will own the entire parcel. We will then assemble it, and it is our intent to resell the property for approximately $600,000, at which point in time the remainder, the $380,000, will be a project expense. Monies in the project fund of about $225 are available. We will then have to bond next year for the remaining difference between for that approximately $155,000. So with that, Council, the recommendation this evening is to approve a settlement agreement with the terms as I've outlined, direct the city attorney to finalize that condemnation. The condemnation proceedings would then be terminated, and we would then become owners of the property and then begin the process of reselling. So you would authorize the mayor and city manager to execute said settlement agreement, and we would proceed accordingly. With that, myself, Mr. Cantor, and Mr. Antonin are available for questions.
Are there any questions of the staff report? So I would just make mention that this is, we had a closed session as part of our workshop prior to this, and this was the area of discussion having to do with that. And so the council has just gone through this for an hour or so earlier this evening, so I'm not surprised that they don't have too many questions.
Make a motion for the settlement.
I'll second that motion. So Mr. Copen has made a motion, and I have seconded it, and it would be to proceed with the settlement agreement for the condemnation of property with Azure Properties at Cunner D and Hazelwood. Are there other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that was everyone. I could tell somewhat reluctantly on some parts, but ayes all. So the next item that we have is our visitor presentation time. I would just announce that if you do want to speak at visitors presentations, you want to go over to Ms. Guilfoyle and sign up over there. That way we have your name and address and that type of information, so that we don't have to necessarily put all of that over the public airways with the several billion people that are currently watching us on the internet. And so, as soon as we have that, so Dave Schilling had signed up for visitor presentations. Good evening, Dave.
Dave Schilling, 1955 Greenbrier Street. Evening, Council, Mayor. My topic is single hauler garbage. I think we heard that before, haven't we? I have a question to ask, and it dogs me, and that says, why are we pursuing this thing? Why are we pursuing this single garbage hauler? We had 200 some people down here during that meeting. We had 1,500 cards sent in. No one wants any part of it. And is it because maybe you want to save the citizens money? Is that the thing? $8 a month, maybe? So I'm wondering, why are we pursuing this thing? Because it's going to be painful. It's very painful to pursue this thing. Like Mr. All's group here, if they can't put all the time and money into the thing, we may have to spend $60,000 to have somebody review this whole thing over, what do they call it. So I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it at all. We had 200, isn't it, why are we doing this? I'm all ears.
Will, can I say something?
Feel free, Marv.
Mr. Schilling, one of the things that came up when we're talking about, we're having a conversation. We're not saying we're going ahead and doing this. One of the things that came up during this conversation was other options that people might have to save money on their garbage. I'm talking about just in this current system we have. We found out that there's some places where they can if they only got one bag of garbage, they can have someone take it to a dump site.
I went through the whole thing.
We had some other things brought up that in some systems, they actually, when they lift up the trash can, they weigh it, and they only charge you for the weight that's in there.
We went through the whole
But anyway,
thing.
so those are the things that are coming up that, regardless of what happens, the public can be more aware of how they can save money.
Right. But I mean, to pursue it too far and spend that kind of money is...
Well, we haven't gone that far yet.
Right.
But anyway, the idea was to have a conversation, see what kind of ideas come
As
forward.
long as we're having a conversation, I'd push it that hard, because that's going to cost us a lot of money. But I remember, Mr. Nephew, you're pretty cool. You had this thing about how come we're not pursuing this thing like we did on the recycling? And you wonder why, how come we weren't pursuing this thing about the recycling? All the citizens were all down here. Well, there's no regulations on that. There's no regulations. There's no federal, there's no state regulations on recycling. I mean, you could just vote on it right away and, but not so. Isn't that right? So there's no big and
I suspect, I think the organized collection statute applies to recycling collection as well as trash collection, doesn't it? I may be mistaken.
No, not. So
I was given some impression on.
So let's be careful.
PCA.
We're not turning this into a conversation.
Right, I'm just trying to say. So that's the reason. If anybody's really interested, they got to come. I would have said no, because we've got a make believe recycler right now, who's Eureka. They're make believe. Now we have a real recycler coming.
Thank you for your opinion.
It's a good opinion.
Of course it is.
You bet it is, pal.
Wrap it up, Dave.
Just something to consider if you were to go single hauler and say it was whoever, supposing I'm going to re-roof my house and I want an open container, dump stuff in, would I have to use that person? You wouldn't know the answers right now, but you have to start thinking about this stuff. If you have a single hauler garbage, does that mean they also have the open top 40-yard dumpsters? Do they have to supply it? Or can anybody call it dumpster when they want?
Actually, we can answer that question, sort of, in that it can be set up either way. There are some cities that have the same haulers provide their trash containers at a reduced rate to the residents of the city due to the fact that they are the preferred hauler in the city. There are other cities that do not do that, but then they license, just like we do now, the people that provide dumpsters in the city. And so those are all options.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, I was
Dave,
just...
let's wrap it up.
Okay, just one more question. It's something to just think about why we're pursuing it. I just don't want to pursue this thing and spend 60 grand and say, oh, well, we're just kidding. Done.
Good evening once again. Diana Longery, 1771 Burr Street. I live over on the west side of Maplewood, and there's something going on by the lifts at the lift station about a block from my house, and DeSoto Street is reduced down to one lane, and I was wondering, do I need to be worried about what's going on at the lift station there? I mean, is it something with our sewer system, or?
Mr. Thompson, do you have to be worried?
Nothing to worry about, Mayor. That is part of our lift station upgrade program. That's one of the last lift stations in the city that we're basically rehabilitating. So they should be done in about a week and a half. So everything is on schedule. No surprises out there.
Are we like putting in new pumps or?
Yep, we're going to a wet well, new pump system, a new cabinet. So yeah, just retrofitting the whole thing, changing out all the pumps.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's good news. And I have noticed a couple times, and I know it's probably inadvertent and they didn't mean to, but my driveway that goes down the hill to that lift station is actually a private drive. So I would appreciate it if anybody associated with the work going on there, that they use the service road. And I'm sure that they have to go around a little bit, but I'd rather have them use a service road rather than my driveway, if that would be okay. Then I did want to mention that with regard to the solar panels on the Maplewood Community Center, I think that that's a good project. I support that. And actually that was something I know that probably about 3.5 years ago we initially talked about. And I'm glad to see that 3M is going to be a part of this project. That they had indicated to me like about 3.5 years ago at one of those open house things I had gone to that they would be very excited. They had a product they wanted to work with. So I'm really glad to see that that's moving forward. And I really support that. I think it's something good we need to do for the community center. Next then, I was watching. Well, first of all, with Mr. Nephew, I'm glad he mentioned this evening that, with that recycling contract with Eureka, that because the contract changed, it ends up that we'd have to pay them more under that contract. And I understood that if we would have extended that contract, that we would have had to pay them more under that extension, correct? I think.
Let's not direct questions to the council.
Oh,
but, I mean,
okay.
you were well aware of the contract.
Well,
You
I don't
worked underneath
remember.
it.
See, I don't remember, so I'm just trying
So
to.
there was a revenue sharing component of that, and so the city would get money if they were selling their product. They
Right.
haven't been selling their product. We haven't been getting any money.
Right,
So
so
in
then-
the report that we had, the one thing that really didn't come up is that instead of getting like $100-some thousand, we got $14,000, and so that's a big number. So
Right.
it puts us short on our funds.
Right, so then we had to pay them more then, right?
I don't know that we paid them more. The contract's for a set amount. It has to do with
Okay.
how much we get.
Okay, well, I'm really glad that we've switched over to a new contractor who appears that they will be able to meet their contract obligations.
Eureka met all their contract obligations, and it is disrespectful to that business to indicate that they have not.
Oh,
And so they have met all their obligations.
right, under the revised contract.
And you were here for the other contract.
But under the revised one, they've met that, yes, that's correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
And actually, they met the ones on the other revised one because there was a clause in that contract that allowed them to come back if there was not a good market to sell their product.
Okay. And then I was watching the workshop about the fire stations, and I understood that it was sort of a surprise to the council that potentially 1 or 2 fire stations might be closed. Is that correct?
I couldn't comment on how surprised anyone on the council was.
Were you surprised?
There has been rumors for years, so it's tough to be too surprised.
Okay. Well, I guess I was just thinking about what I heard you say, and it sounded like you were surprised, and so I was just wondering if people were surprised up at the council here. Because, quite frankly, I wasn't surprised, and I was wondering when it was finally going to come out in the open, because it was actually something that was discussed and was a campaign issue, was even at the debate at St. John's, sort of talked around in the fall of 2009. And so it's taken a long time for it to finally get out into the public. And so I think it's important that there be more frank and open discussion about that. And then, lastly, I just wanted to say that You know, I noticed that on your administrative presentation,